Welcome back, everybody, to the NARPM Radio podcast. And I have Gary Wilson here. And Gary, he was kind enough to have me on his podcast. And as he and I were conversing and having going through that podcast, he was telling me that not only is he this incredible coach and investor and realtor and broker, but that he used to own a property management firm. And so I'm like, oh my God, I would love to hear your story. Let's tell your story to all these folks here that are property management owners and property managers. So Gary, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome, Pete. I appreciate the opportunity. I love teaching and serving. So hopefully today people walk away with a big smile and some good ideas that they can implement like right away, you know?
So take us through your journey, and with a little main focus on the property management firm, but take us through your journey, because it's a pretty
Sure.
interesting one.
Yeah. Well, how it really all started, I mean, early on, I was 8 years old drawing house plans. I just was enamored by architecture and houses. And one of my best friends' dad was an architect. Turns out my grandfather taught architecture in college way back in like 100 years ago now. And he taught me how to draw real floor plans. And my mom bought me the whole kit and everything, the drawing board, T-square, compasses, everything. And I still draw house plans for fun. But fast forward, I ended up going to school at Old Dominion University in Tidewater, Virginia. And it was really because I didn't get accepted in the School of Architecture at Virginia Tech. So it was like my plan B. It was by the ocean. I'm like, cool, let's do that, mom. And the first person I met, dude named Socrates, his parents were both Greek, obviously. His dad was a Greek immigrant, mom first generation. And fast forward, we were graduating and we were going to go out and just rent a place, a block from the beach and live the life. And his dad, I can hear him on the phone yelling, like spit coming out. He's like, no, you're not. You're not going to rent. You're going to buy. Don't be stupid like other people. You're going to buy and you're going to get rich. And I'm like, okay, so sign me up, man. So we bought a 4 bedroom, 2 bathroom rancher, and Sock and I rented out the other 2 bedrooms. And
Well,
those
how'd you
guys
do this? You
ranch
just right out of college. Did you even have a job
right
yet?
out of college. Absolutely. So people freak out about this, but we assumed a VA mortgage. The owner was an active duty Navy. We assumed his first mortgage, but he had a second that we refinanced in our own name with Sock's dad signing for it. And the remaining equity was a third note. And people say, well, you can't do that anymore. I said, yes, you can. We do it every day. VA, FHA, USDA, all three 100% assumable today, as long as
And
you
and they're
qualify.
all they're all coming back now because interest rates are
Yeah.
high, right? So assumable loans are kind of coming back.
Absolutely.
Want to
Even
buy.
a lot of variable rate mortgages have always been assumable. People just don't realize that. So in any case, we were initially investors slash landlords right off the bat. And I got married a few years later to a girl from Pittsburgh, and Sock bought me out. So I turned essentially a total of $3,000 out into it. My $50 a month was my contribution. That's all that was required. And because the other guys rent, paid her everything else. But the closing costs from the first purchase, all in 3,000. 2 years later, I get 8,000 out. And I remember his dad at the closing, like pounding his chest, saying, "If you boys do what I tell you to do, you're not going to have to work for anybody else when you're 35 years old." Well, I get married, moved to Pittsburgh, started having kids, and living the corporate life and hated it. I mean, I was not born to be sitting behind a desk, man. So 35 years old, Sock's dad had passed away. And I'm thinking, man, I wish I'd have listened to what he told me. So I went out that next year, thanks to Carlton Sheets, and I think I bought them
Oh
for
yeah.
twice. So yeah, man, and that stuff still works today. So
I gotta
I had a
ask though,
total of
when by the time you found Carlton Sheets, what was Sox doing? What was Socrates doing? Was he retired
he
already? Did he listen
Sock
to
had
his
moved to
dad?
Florida and was buying land right on A1A,
Oh wow.
and he was buying lots at 11,000 a pop. So he still has a couple. Just imagine what those things are worth today,
Oh
you know?
man.
So he got in right before the massive migration of people moving down
Yeah.
there, and he just bought a nice, beautiful, $1 million home, just spectacular. He the guys, it's just a great story. Um,
So Carlton
and
Sheets, no money down, the tapes, right? Did you buy
That's
the
it, man.
tape?
Yeah, we bought houses every which way you can imagine. So I actually wrote a book on all the ways that I bought houses. But so in any case, I'm in Pittsburgh, and of course, Pittsburgh is nothing like Virginia Beach where we were living. And I ended up not really liking that too much either. But the people are awesome, sports are awesome, culture, food, everything's great. And it was an excellent place to invest. So I bought a total of 30 units in that next year when I was 35. And I
All single
literally
family
was already,
homes?
actually, there were multi duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. I
Okay.
didn't start it on the single family till a couple years later. And the reason I started that was I realized, you know what? When I go to sell a single family home, I have a much bigger audience. I can sell it to investors,
That's
but
right.
also owner occupants. So I bought like 22 single family homes in a row. And my logic was I called it a long-term flip. My logic was I would pick the areas where I knew the money was coming in from the county, the state, the federal government, gentrification money. And I just, and you can, and guys, anybody listening, you can find this stuff online. You can Google it and find out who's getting the grants, where's the money going, and go there because guaranteed they're going to be building casinos and stadiums and stuff like that, and it will over time increase your property value. They'll take neighborhoods and raise them and just rebuild them. So that's what I started doing. But my money coming in, Heat, from that first year of investing was already matching my income from my day job. And I was in corporate, I was in IT. I did mergers and acquisitions. And I guess I can tell you, PNC Bank was where I was. And we were growing all over the nation. And I was doing well there. The corporate world served me well. I just didn't like it, And the more I didn't like it, the more they promoted me. I was like, "Heck on it." I'm getting ready to leave, and they promote me again. So finally, I left. Then I
Especially
started
IT.
buying.
I think IT pays you just enough. Doesn't make you
Yeah,
wealthy, but it's a good living. And it's hard to
yeah,
leave that six-figure plus job, especially
oh yeah.
when you're doing that in the early 2000s, late 90s.
It
Yeah.
was. That was a tough, very tough, emotional decision. It took me 6 months to pull the trigger. I'd already made my mind I was going to do it, and it took me 6 months to finally walk in one day and say, "Look, guys, I don't need to work here anymore." And my boss was actually he was just like happy for me. He said, "You know what? One of his best friends did the same thing out in Colorado, and was retired at 40 years old. And I was exactly 40 years old at that time and retired. And I never forget, I'm walking out of there with a dolly with my boxes of personal belongings. And we had just had a major layoff about the time I announced that, I was going to leave. And so I'm down on the street corner in downtown Pittsburgh, and these guys came up in a suit. They were like, "Man, we feel so bad. You got a resume? Maybe we can help you out. Can we help you take your stuff to your car?" And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "You must got caught up in that lift." I said, "No, I just retired, man." And they looked at me like they were startled. And then at that moment, it hit me. I'm like, "I'm free. I bought my freedom." And so what happened is I got really frustrated trying to find real estate agents that knew how to work with me. So I built my own brokerage company, and we worked with investors. That's what we did. It was called Win Realty Advisors. And we helped regular folks too, but our focus was absolutely on investing. Built up a big clientele, and guess what they needed? So all these people are investing, and what do investors need eventually?
Oh, management. Yeah.
They
Then
need management, property management.
can you manage my
So
property? Can you collect the rent for
yeah,
me? Can you put a renter in?
so here's where the rubber hits the road, guys. Everybody listening, this is you want to start kind of taking notes unless you're driving and then do it later. But I started building the beginnings of a company. I didn't know it at the time. I'm building a team of electricians, plumbers, kitchen people, flooring people, carpenters, roofers, you name it. And so I started farming that stuff out first because I realized I was doing it myself and I was taking a lot of time that I didn't have. I had two little kids. I was still working prior to that, right? And so I started hiring out the things that I knew were skilled labor, like plumbing and electrical, that I didn't have. I learned it. Like I actually wired the from the street to my house and the weatherhead down to the meter and inside to the pen. I actually did that myself one time with a friend of mine. Looking back, I
I
could
think
have done
aren't you
that.
supposed to have permits and be licensed? But I'm just saying, back then probably not.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, that's long and long. They're not going to come after me now. But yes, you're right. You needed permits and everything. But at the time, it was kind of loosey goosey. They ended up cracking down on all that stuff eventually. But in any case, what I realized was I can get a lot more investing done if I spent less time managing the property. So then I took one of my tenants, and I had a vacancy next door to her. I called her up and said, "Hey, Brian, I can't get there in time. You think you can open up the door for this guy, the keys, wherever I hid the key?" And she not only opened the door for the guy, showed him around. She took out her copy of the application when she rented for me, and at least to show him what was all involved. But first of all, you really can't do that because she's not an agent doing that. Actually, you can do that. You can manage for one person in every state. You can manage for one owner without a license. As soon as you add a second owner, you need a license. But in any case, I called her up later. She interviewed the guy, screened him, had him fill out the application. I'm like, "Are you serious?" She said, "Yeah, I love you. I love renting from you, and I wanted to do a good job." I said, "Are you looking for work?" You know, and she said, "Yeah." So I had her start to show my vacancies. Um, and so I'm building this team, and then she knew a cleaning crew, like an in-law had a cleaning company. They did all of her cleanup. So all of a sudden, I've got the beginnings of a business model, and I'm loving life. I'm buying more properties. And then what happened is my clients started asking me, "Hey, can you manage my properties?" Where I used to say, "No, I wouldn't. You couldn't pay me enough to do that for anybody else." Well, finally, I realized God's trying to hit me over the head with a two by four, actually a four by four. And I finally started saying yes. So I took on 8 clients and for a total of 40 additional units. And it went like a charm because I just literally took what I already had built, the team, electricians, the plumbers, clean out crew, the whole 9 yards, and I incorporated it into an LLC. And then those people paid the LLC. And by the way, what I did, Pete, genius move, I didn't know it at the time. I decided I'm going to run all my own properties through that same LLC so I would receive everything that my clients were getting, notices, emails, anything that had to do with the properties. I would get them and I would pay. I paid actually too. I paid my own company to manage my own properties because I didn't know what I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I better figure this out. So I thought if I'm a client, I'll see it firsthand. This is exactly what I did. And we started growing. So that business grew, dude. We went from 40 units to 700 units in less than 3 years. And guess how much money I spent on advertising?
I'm going to say probably zero.
Zero, not one dime. Because Peter would tell Paul, Jane would tell Mary, and it grew organically. I mean, and we had to grow too. We were still doing things the old manual way. I had to
You were
buy a
still, you
system.
were
I bought
still,
something called
you were
PropertyWare.
still you were
Go
spending
ahead.
money, investing in your investment group, like finding deals. Because you got to get the leads somehow, right? And then as you get the leads, you
Yeah.
find more people. So were you spending money or investing money in marketing to find properties and buy properties or on your brokerage side?
Actually, I'll tell you exactly what happened. So early on, long before I launched the brokerage, I had something like 40 something units. And this guy had a local, we call them gurus. A local guru had his own training program. And somebody told him about me. Somebody that I knew I was investing, he was investing, and said, "You got to meet this guy, Gary Wilson, man. He's just a regular Joe and he's working a job and he's doing this on the side. He coaches softball and soccer, just a regular dude." This guy called me up and said, "Hey, can you come to my Saturday morning business program?" This was when radio was still pretty big, and it was on FM too. So I thought, "Hey, this is pretty cool." I said, "Absolutely." I went in 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and you know, and I get passionate about this stuff because it bought me my freedom. So he called me the next week and he said, "Mr. Wilson, I sold more programs after your interview." He said, "Would you please come in and just meet some of these guys?" And by the way, when I mean say guy, I mean guys and girls, guys, everybody.
Sure.
Come in and meet them. Just come in for lunch one day, and when I'm teaching a class, and you can go to lunch with them. I said, "Sure." Went out there, and I thought this was awesome. And he said, "Would you like to teach a segment?" And I said, "I'd love to, man." Didn't know what I never taught a thing in my life. And I loved it. And I found out something about myself. I love teaching. I still do it today. I get excited just like I did all those 20 years ago. But what happened is the students started asking me, "Hey, can you be my agent?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, no. I don't want to do that." Of course, my wife's like, "Are you stupid? People are trying to give you money and you're saying no." So finally, I went in one day. This is the funny part. I knew nothing about marketing. I went in and I said, "I know you're going to ask me, so I'm going to tell you right up front. I can take two of you guys on as clients,
Oh,
okay, after class."
scarcity,
Well,
scarcity.
every one of them raised their hand. There was like an average of 25 people. And then at that one, thankfully, my Irish brain kicked in a lot more quickly this time. I thought, "Ooh, I see a business model coming up." So that's when I started the brokerage. And what I did is the only clients I took were the ones that I taught. So I had this instant funnel, right? They're already being taught by somebody else. I'm helping to teach them. I knew who was going to succeed and who wouldn't, right? And I take them on, and that was my client base. And I had people buy 40 or more properties with me
Yep.
just by So if you're anybody out there listening is an agent and you got that mindset, I don't want to work with investors, they're crazy and blah, blah, blah. You are leaving money on the table, brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, a lot of money, especially in a recession when your owner occupant business drops off the cliff, the investor business goes through the roof. So you just need to learn the lingo, learn the methodology and the terminology. You'll never have a shortage of clients. And by the way, maybe you start investing yourself. So that's really my funnel. I mean, that's in a nutshell.
So
I was on Facebook, but I didn't. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot
I,
to there's a lot to digest here, and you kind of said it really quick. So I want to really drill
mhm,
this down because a
mhm,
lot of folks that are listening, they're trying to figure out how to get leads, right? That's like every time I do a growth episode, I get double the downloads, and so people are always looking at growth, right?
mhm,
And what you just described is basically you've basically connected with an investor group. He was a guru, but he was a real estate investment company group
mhm.
inside of Pittsburgh. And you basically became you taught for free for him, right? So I think
Yep.
that's important, right? So you don't make money when you get paid. You make money by the things you do for free. And
Mhm,
then you basically developed a following and what
mhm,
I love is that you only took clients where you actually bought the properties. And I've been telling people, I actually, when I started my business, I tried to create the Empire Investment Club. Like I was going to create an investment club because I knew that if somebody bought a property from me, the trust was already built and the chance of them leaving, because you're going to screw up on property management. We all do. And
mhm.
but if they have that trust, they're not going to leave. So I got to ask, your retention rate was
Yep.
pretty high.
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody ever left, quite frankly. I mean, it
Never
was,
left your management company unless they sold, right? Like that was like
yeah,
the only
some
reason.
people did sell. And I tell you what, there's a lot of golden nuggets in that whole process too, because remember, these investors are buying and they're trading up. They're buying and selling. We got all the business on the broker side. And I'll tell you something else, guys, definitely write this down. When you're in property management, you're going to be engaging with a lot of other people from different industries. You're going to be engaging with the city employees, occupancy inspectors, zoning officers. You're going to be dealing with lenders, attorneys, inspectors, appraisers, pest control, lawn care, snow removal. It just goes on and on. And you have all their direct contact information, names, numbers, and emails. So we started in a very subtle I wouldn't say passive, but it was not, we were not aggressive, we're not salesy. We would just say, hey, I just wanted to show you this because it's an area. One of our clients just flipped a home right down the street from you. How would you like to flip a home and make 75,000 bucks like this guy did? That's what we did. And we got all kinds of business from. We would even get the sales of their own homes. The inspector would sell his home. The attorney would sell her home. We got so many deals from the vendors that supported our property management business. I mean, it just was like everywhere we turned, there was gold under those rocks. Every rock we turned over, there was something that we could offer, and that's exactly what we did. We just did it, because we had the people, we had the skills, you know.
That's brilliant. So let's talk. I want to talk a little bit about, when you got the 40 doors, when you had about 40 yourself, then you had about eight clients came in, they had 40 doors, you doubled right then and there. How many, well, you said you got to about 700 units.
Mhm.
What year is this about? Because I think, we talked, I think this is in the early 2000s, mid
Yeah,
2000s.
I started investing aggressively in Pittsburgh in 1997, late 97. And then with my license, that was like real estate license, that was around 2002. But remember, I had no intention of being a typical real estate agent at all. That
Mhm.
was no, that was 2002. And then by 2007, I think I had 150 units myself. Um, then I bought a big building, a 90 unit building. Actually, it ultimately had 250 some odd units when you shake it all out. But the brokerage I launched in January 2008, and within like 3 months, we were like launching the property management business because it was just way too.
I
You
love
talk
the
about
fact that
low
you
hanging
launched
fruit.
a brokerage firm during the darkest time in
Oh
the
yeah,
history of real estate. But that just shows you that investing, it's always around. So in
oh yeah,
'08, you basically start your management firm, and then you start third partying in 2009-ish.
yeah. We were. Uh, we started getting a lot more professional about it. So we got Propertyware. It's a great property management software. There's a lot of, I'm not promoting Propertyware, just telling you that's what we had. There's
Mhm.
other programs, and we started off just using QuickBooks Pro. That's how we started, you know.
Mm.
Um, but the what we started doing is requiring our contractors to be licensed and bonded when the industry, that was the norm. Like electricians, you'd want to have them be bonded because if they screw up, a house is going to burn down, you know. So they have to be insured and bonded. Um, and then some of the guys that were like just handyman or carpenters, they really didn't need bonding and they probably should have had insurance. I don't know if they did or not, but we required them to set up LLCs for themselves and then get business insurance and things like that. And one of them we actually owned. We actually owned one of the crews, but we had 5 crews. So we started getting really strategic and business wise about it to play defense. See, guys, when you're building business, your focus is initially on offense, scoring points, putting points on the board, making some money. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't watch your back door and you don't have a defensive plan, just like in football or the army, you're gonna you're gonna get taken advantage of. Something's gonna hurt. You're gonna hurt at some point. So, we had one or two little things happen. People slip on the ice and stuff like that. Nothing major, but insurance took care of it. And I realized we need to play more defense. So that's when we started requiring more of our vendors and separating ourselves from them, like through LLCs. Um, and we still disclosed if I had like a partnership, I would always disclose, hey, I'm part owner of X. So that I'm like they didn't have to worry about anybody coming back and saying, Gary misled me because I never did. But the bottom
How,
line is when it comes to lawsuits, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. What matters is if you understand the rules of the game, right? And the person that understands the rules better, just like in baseball, they don't have to have the star player, but if they use the rules to their advantage, they're going to win. And that's what happens in business. You got to be aware of that, guys. Make sure you have a defensive plan. And so when it came to the third parties, a lot of them we actually created. We helped them create their businesses. We showed them what to do. Um, and very rarely did I ever end up in court. I mean, we were taking people to court to collect rents and stuff if we had to, but as far as lawsuits against us, there was only two, and they actually were both after they sold the emergency businesses. They came in much later. From one was a flip that the contractor screwed up on some structural stuff, and the other one was one of my agents. Her helped her daughter buy a threeplex that ended up having the zoning only for a duplex. Nobody, the municipality, the inspector never disclosed it. The title company didn't discover it. It came up much later. That was it. Those are the only two suits, guys. But it's because we did a good job. We were good owners, right? We had proper property insurance on the properties, us and our clients. And we hired good people and we made sure nobody was doing stupid stuff in our units. We played good defense. And as a result, when I merged my businesses, I mean, I still get paid for one of them all these years later. I mean, it's been 12 years since I sold the brokerage. I still get paid for that because it was such a good deal for them and for me. The property management company, I got to pay out for like 3 years. And I was supposed to help them stick around and consult. They never needed me because it was so dialed in, so tight that they didn't need to call me. I mean, they could have, but we had the systems down literally. You could we everything documented, policies, procedures. It was a real full blown business. We probably, in hindsight, I would love to have kept them, Pete, but I wasn't from Pittsburgh. I've always been around the beach. I went through a divorce, and I'm like, I just want to get it over with. So that's when we started selling things because I wanted to get out of Pittsburgh. Again, I love the people, but Gary Wilson needs to have his toes in the sand and the sun on his face and not shoveling snow and scraping salt off the undercarriage of my car. So that's my philosophy now. There's a lot in there. I know there's probably a lot to unpack. I mean, anything you want to know, just ask me. I'm happy to share.
so tell me, how many people did you have working for you in the property management uh,
At
company?
the peak, it was probably, well, internally, we probably had 6 people, like actual full-time W-2 employees internally. Like one person, all she did was manage all the incoming, um, you know, maintenance and repair calls. Another person, all she did was deal with the owners. She dealt with the owners, right? Another person, all he did was the showings. Um, So we had, and somebody, we had a full-time bookkeeper. So those were the roles. And I actually cross-trained them. So I would have them learn another person's job so that they could go on vacation and I didn't have to worry. And ultimately, I still stayed involved. I mean, I always met with the owners. I'd go meet them, go to lunch, go look at the properties. So I was kind of hands-on. I wasn't doing the administrative work, but I was maintaining relationships with the owners because I also was a client. Remember, I was paying my own company to run my own properties. So I could speak the language. I knew what they were getting, what they were going through. I could offer advice. Like if they had a property that just like an industry would leave town, for example, then all of a sudden that neighborhood, is taking a hit. And and I would say, well, here's some strategies you could do for selling. You could repurpose it. There's all kinds of things. And they love the fact that I could offer that type of advice. Where most of the property management companies, they weren't doing that kind of service. They were just trying to fill doors and collect rents.
Yeah,
So,
because a lot of them didn't have the capacity or they didn't have the knowledge or a little bit of both. I really
mhm,
think it's genius that you really brought all your clients in through the investor program, we'll call it for lack
mhm,
of a better word, and then you got to meet and you got to build that trust. And so that
mhm.
trust carried through 3, 4, 5 years later, they're still reaching out to you for for solutions or
Mhm.
hey, I'm guessing people bought multiple properties from you as well.
Oh
Like,
yeah. I mean, easily the average was probably, I'd say the average was 10 units. I mean, some people bought
yeah.
way more than that. But
So it's 700 units. You still owned about 200. Is that fair? And you had about
I had
500 third
to
party?
I ended up settling in about 250 units and I held on to that for years. I eventually did sell out. And it wasn't, you know, I mean, in hindsight, I can tell you, well, this was a big lesson. I did it because it was a strategic move for me and it worked out. What I did worked out. Here I am today. I'm, can live anywhere I want to live, travel whenever I want to travel. And I still teach my class every Monday night called Monday Night Live. I still teach it all these years later. I've got people in there who've been in with me for 20 or more years, and we're friends now. We actually literally, I've had people have me stay at their houses when I'm traveling, and pay for me to go skiing the Vail, Colorado with them and stuff like that, because it's the relationship. And what you just touched on, Pete, is very important. When you lead with education, when you teach people, don't just do the what, teach them the how, teach
Mhm.
them the why, teach them all the little nuances, because the teaching student relationship is probably more built on trust. They get to know you, like you, and trust you, and they get to see the authentic, real, genuine you. So, an education is worth far more than any one duplex or triplex or fourplex. I mean, knowing what I know now, I had mastermind groups I was in. It cost $100,000. I probably spent over 1 million just on my own education, but I
Yep.
would do it 10 times more than that because of what it's done for me. But a lot of people knew, they don't understand that. They don't have that mindset. They're just trying to pinch pennies. And I get it. I've been there. I know what that's like. Just know this: you have to take inventory of who you know, where you are, what you know, and what you have. And you start there. Be realistic. Don't go for the 100-unit building right out of the gate if your inventory tells you you should be starting off with a duplex, or like I did, half of a house. I didn't even own a whole home when I started. I bought 50% of a house, right? I literally started with almost nothing because I had almost nothing.
Right.
So start there. And I tell you what, guys, the journey, you're going to hit a tipping point. So you're going to find out somewhere between 10 and 20 units on average, you're going to have the cash flow that's allowing you to accumulate and you bank it. Don't ever take money out until you build a machine that's feeding itself. So I got to the point, Pete, where my cash flow was paying for my new units. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then when I hit that tipping point, it's like a hockey stick. It just went up. And then the banks were calling me. I never called banks again in my life. They called me to see if I needed to borrow money. I was buying properties. It's extremely strategic, creative processes and procedures. Like the 90-unit building, I didn't put one dime out of my pocket in the building. The bank gave me all the money I needed, even the remodeling cost. And by the way, the bank was owned by investors, by the way. So they knew what I was doing. They knew what I was doing was smart and it worked because I had a huge portfolio, right? And I wasn't going anywhere. They knew I was, here's the thing. I know this is off the subject of property management. It's so important. Banks look at the four C's: cash, collateral, credit, and character. In the beginning, it's all about your credit score and how much cash you have, right? As you gain experience and you go through a couple ups and downs, they're looking at character. Character means when the
Mhm.
poop hit the fan, you didn't jump overboard and let your ship crash into rocks and run for the hills and declare bankruptcy foreclosure, right? They're looking to see, do you have the character to make it through the storms? And if you do, you will never have a problem borrowing money. You could have the worst credit score on the planet, but if you've got a history of making it through the good times and the bad times, every lender on the planet is going to lend you money. The good ones,
The
big, big
small
lesson.
and smaller lenders too, right? You're looking at local banks and
Yep.
stuff. So,
Community
all right,
banks, exactly.
I want to hit on a couple of points, then we're going to hit a commercial break. So, number one thing, um, a lot of people listen to this like 700 units, six people. That's not a lot of people per, for the units. So, remember, Gary owned 250 of those units, one owner. He said that the owners average 40 units. He had about 15 owners. So he didn't have a lot of landlords that he had to deal with. He had a lot of tenants, but he didn't have a lot of landlords. So that's important. And then number two is if you can create an investment group or a meetup and you can help investors and teach them, and then you can help them buy, your stickiness and the churn rate will go down. And my guess, Gary, is you had investors selling properties to other investors right inside your portfolio, and
Oh yeah,
you were getting the brokerage on both
yeah.
sides.
We sold entire portfolios, and we would not only get all the commissions, but we would keep the properties under management.
Yep. That's a
So,
beautiful. We love that. That's like a
yeah,
triple win right there.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, by the way, I do want to mention that the six people were internal. So, guys, when it comes to the outside people, the electricians, plumbers, painters, cleaners, that is not scalable. You just got to have enough people for every so many tenants that you have, it's the inside people that's very scalable. If you have the right software and the right systems and you train them well, six people is like a Navy SEAL team. Hell, you can take down 1,000 units maybe.
Well,
So,
these days you can get remote team members through VPM solutions, and you can
oh yeah,
even have assistants to those people, and they can even 10x what they're doing. Just
that's
saying.
exactly right. That's
Gary,
another
that
big
was
golden nugget
tons,
there.
tons of nuggets, man. Tons of nuggets.
Yeah,
All right, we're gonna hit a commercial break. We're gonna put you on the lightning round. We'll be right back, everybody.
sounds good.
All right, we're back with Gary Wilson. Gary, thanks so much for your story. We're gonna get you on the lightning round. Are you ready?
I'm ready, man. I have no idea what's about to happen, but fire away.
All right. What is one piece of advice you'd give somebody that's just starting out in the property management business?
Wow. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. It has to do with screening of tenants because and you're in the property management business, whether you're an owner or a manager, that's like the scrimmage line on the field of football. You got your offensive lineman, defensive lineman. The people that control the line win the game. So you got to control the line of who's coming into your units. So here's something we did. We would never do individual showings. We would set up all of our showings on like a Saturday morning from like we would be at one unit from 9 to 11, and we would schedule appointments, every 15 minutes. Now there would be some natural overlap. Some people are going to be late, some people are going to be early. That's okay. What it did is allowed people to have time with me individually, or my at the time, later on the manager or the showing officers, excuse me. But also because of the overlap, somebody would show up before the last people left. It created competition among the applicants. So we never had a problem getting applications for our units. Then we go back and then we might do another unit from like noon to 2 and then 3 to 5. But we did it all in one time. So we're only driving to one place once. We're not going there all days of the week and hours of the day. We would run all the applications, right? And we would compare the applications to the phone interview. So we first, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this. We would always start with a phone interview first. We would fill out this intake form on the phone interview. And then when we got the actual application at the unit, we would tell them, if you want to rent this unit, you've got to get us the security deposit check right now. We're not going to cash it, but we're going to take that. You got to give us a fee to run your background check. We would take that. It went from 25 to 75 bucks over the years. And then what we would do is when we get back, we would compare the application to the phone intake form and make sure that they matched each other. Because if they change their story, like they tell you over the phone, they've been working such and such a place for 10 years and they make all this money. Then you get the application and it's something different, huge red flag. But also, don't just call the current landlord that they're who are renting from now. Call the prior landlord because the
Yep.
prior landlord's got nothing to
That's
lose or
right.
gain. The
That's
current
right.
landlord does. And by the way, we would sometimes ask the prior landlord, can you share with us the application that you received? And they would do that. And we would call their prior landlord.
I
Because
don't
I,
think
I
they're
did this.
allowed to do that, by the way. I think
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, yeah. You guys
I don't
scrap
think you're
that. You
allowed
didn't
to
hear that from me.
share an application. Yeah, don't
Yep.
do that, people.
Don't do that. Sorry about that. Okay.
I used to do that back in the day, and then we went moved to self-showing. So we use Tenant Turner, but
Well,
show
that's
me
smart.
Tenant Turner. This self-showing was really, really solid. All right, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Pineapple on bologna pizza, you said?
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Oh, in certain cases, it does. I used to have an employee, he loved pineapple and anchovy pizza, and I couldn't stand it. But I would buy him pizza when we go to lunch because he liked it.
What was your first job?
My first job was delivering papers, paper route. Back in the days when Bigfoot was the big thing, like in the early 70s, I was scared. 4 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold, and Bigfoot was going to get me. That was my first job, man. You know?
Uh, what's your favorite fast food restaurant?
Oh, wow. It's called, I think it's Culver's. Culver's, that's what it is. I ran into them in Michigan at first. They started spreading all over the Midwest. That's the best fast food restaurant there is. Culver's, Culvers.
Really?
Yeah,
All right. What
yeah.
is your ideal vacation?
Oh man, I would say like Fiji, Bora Bora, something like that, where you have a hut over the water with a glass floor. That's it.
Oh man, that sounds cool. If
Yeah.
you could have dinner with anyone alive, who would it be?
Ooh, anyone alive right now? Okay, I'm probably gonna brand myself. I would love to have lunch or dinner with Donald Trump after what he just went through. And I'm not saying I voted for him. I'm just telling you what
Yeah,
that
he's
guy
super
went
interesting.
through. I mean, I gotta have lunch with that guy.
Yeah. What is a book that you're currently reading or one that's impacted your business or life that you would recommend?
Ooh, I've literally read and training courses and books combined and audibles over 3,000. But I would say, and I'm not trying to preach a sermon here, but I got to tell you guys, the Holy Bible, whether you read the Quran, the Gita, um, the Torah, the Christian Bible, or try to study Buddhism, Buddhism's hard to study, a lot of common themes in there. Start there because some of the best business lessons you'll ever learn come from that type of material. And then, I mean, there's a million. Think and Grow Rich is a good second. I've read that book easily a dozen times. Classic.
Which Disney character do you most associate with?
Um, Boy, I can't remember the dog's name. Was it Goofy? Was Goofy
Pluto
the
or
dog?
Goofy?
I think it was Goofy. Yeah, because I people always tell me they don't know how it is I've gotten to be so successful because in person I'm like a kind of a goofy person. I really am. But I just wear it on my sleeve. I just tell it like it is, and you get what you see is what you get. And I entertain a lot of people. You know, Hey, it looks
You,
like you
you
just got me
prefer
to be
you prefer dogs or cats?
dogs. I love cats,
Okay.
but dogs number one. Yeah.
Gary, somebody has heard this video or heard this podcast and they want to contact you. First tell us about your book real quick, and then tell us how they can contact you.
Yep. Well, I've written 8 books now, but the most recent one is called Global Investor Agent, and it takes you through the life cycle of me starting out all the way through building brokerage and property management and build team building teams, guys. I got to tell you, property management is aside is one of the best businesses you could ever have, but a brokerage is not. A brokerage is probably the least profitable thing you can do in real estate. But owning a team, man, you could. I have a team with team members in 38 states right now, and my overhead is 15%. I personally keep 85% of all the money coming in the front end. That's an amazing business model. Do it with a team. Do property management too, by the way, because you get a lot of leads from it. But that book, Global Investor Agent, you can get it on Amazon. The next one after that is called Massive Passive Cash Flow Method. It kind of gets granular, like with purchasing techniques and commercial and things like that. It shows you the progression on the academic slash technical scale. Those two books combined, I mean, anybody can do what I've done. And I will tell you, don't be like me, be better than me. All right. Don't suffer the school of hard knocks like I did. Just follow what I teach. It works.
And what's the best way to contact you?
I'll give you my email, my personal email. It's Gary Gary at rewgw.com. But because of spam and all this stuff, guys, the best thing is actually just go to globalinvestoragent.com and scroll down. There's a way you can leave your name and I think email or phone number, or maybe it's just email, and you'll be able to set up a call with me and literally a one-on-one strategy call. I do this all the time, totally free. There's no hooks. I'm not selling anything. I'm not recruiting anybody. It's just straight up teaching and serving because that's how I benefit. Lord knows I did not get where I'm at myself. I definitely had help. So I live my life. My mission card, I don't know if I have it with me here right now, but it literally says, my life mission is to improve the life of every single person I meet. That's where I am right now. I have no debt. I have everything you could possibly imagine. I have all the fun in the world, and there's no more fulfillment greater than helping somebody else reach their dreams. And I mean that with all the sincerity in the world.
All right, Garrett, thanks for being here. If you are listening to this and you're not a member of NARPM, go to NARPM, NARPM.org to join or give them a call at 800-782-3452. And if you're looking for a remote team member, give us an opportunity to earn your business, vpmsolutions.com. Thanks, Gary. Talk to everybody.